Hi there, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Ski Podcast. This is an interview with veteran ski journalist Arnie Wilson. Now, Arnie is a fascinating man. He has skied in over 700 ski resorts in more than 34 countries, and is perhaps most famous for the year 1994, where he skied every single day for a year. I really enjoyed talking to Arnie. We recorded this outside in May 2022. So in the background, you may hear a bit of a squeaky table, maybe some school children, some people playing table tennis. But I think that gives it a certain verite. So I'm sure you'll enjoy this conversation. So sit back and listen to my chat with Arnie Wilson. I am delighted to be joined today by Arnie Wilson. I think many of our listeners will know who Arnie is. I think we just clarified that he has skied in 739 different ski resorts around the world, and he's probably most famous as being the first person to ski 365 consecutive days when he was working for the Financial Times. And there's a very good book called Ski the World, which we've covered in the podcast before. Hi Arnie, how are you going?
Very well, thank you. It seems strange. It sounds like I'm hearing about somebody else. Is that really me?
Yeah, well, I mean it is, and that's a reason I really wanted to have you on the show. And I definitely want to ask you about, the Ski the World, because that's just an unbelievable experience to be able to do that and ski every single day for a year. But I wonder if I could just start off by asking you, when did you actually first ever ski? Where and when was that?
I went on a school trip to Switzerland. The snow wasn't much good. I was obviously about, 14, 15, and my parents were not very well off, and they managed to buy me ski clothing, and that was it. I wasn't able to afford to go skiing again until I was about 30.
But that was right, that was your intro to it. Well, I guess that's how a lot of people start, even now. How they start skiing, although maybe not as many people are going on school trips these days. And so you had a bit of a gap after that, but you started off your career before you became a ski journalist as more of a broader journalist, a more traditional journalist working in the industry. Is that right?
Yeah, I worked in Fleet Street interviewing celebrities. Skiing didn't come into it really at all, although later on, of course, when I was in the skiing industry, I did meet, I had lunch with Clint Eastwood, skied with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those, but in those early celebrities, and who were you interviewing then?
Oh gosh, 200 famous people, and in those days, I don't want to brag, but they really were famous. I had breakfast with Buzz Aldrin.
Wow.
Wonderful guy. So many of them, I'd have to refer to a list. Lunch with David Bowie.
Wow. A lot of people would be extremely envious of you for that. These are writing profiles or features for different newspapers, was it?
It could even be little scrappy bits. I mean, after the round the world trip, because I'd had lunch with Clint Eastwood en route, he very sweetly, as you can see on the front of the cover, agreed to write the intro. Of course, makes it much more interesting to people and more bona fide. And what was quite funny about that was, I said, could you send us your signature? And he popped his signature in a box, put the box in a larger box, put the larger box in a parcel. So when it arrived, it was triple wrapped, and that's the signature in the book.
And you met him and Arnie, and I think you met Robert Redford as well during your travels around that time.
Much later.
Oh, was it much later?
Yeah.
But you were obviously writing all these profiles and meeting celebrities early on in your career. But when you got to the Financial Times, there's a certain point where you ended up becoming the ski correspondent for the Financial Times.
Yeah, that's what they called it. And of course, the great thing about the World Ski Tour was that they endorsed it. They didn't pay me to do it, but they did pay me for my articles. And the good thing was, of course, that because we were skiing in Chile and Argentina, Australia and New Zealand, it never stopped, which is the whole idea.
Yeah.
And so my pieces were appearing every Saturday in the weekend FT right the way through the summer.
Right, perfect.
Which has never happened before, may not ever happen again.
Yeah, I mean, that was 1994. Possibly that was I don't know if it was the heyday of ski journalism. Certainly when I was doing ski seasons around that time, I remember Alistair Scott, he wrote for the Times and the Sunday Times, and it was much more important then. I think with the Sunday Times, I remember, because it was pre-internet, everybody advertised in the travel section of the Sunday Times, if you had a chalet or a ski holiday to sell, because there was nowhere else to do it.
exactly. Yes, I ski with Alistair quite a bit.
And what about the actual Ski the World, the round the world ski expedition then? Did you pitch that to the Financial Times? Did you say to them, oh, this will be a really good idea?
Well, I'd already been writing for them for 10 years or so, roughly that.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to do something different, even if you're not interested. I think what it was, I wrote a magazine article. Then asked me the name of the magazine. It's quite a famous magazine. Could you ski somewhere every month of the year?
Okay.
Thought, yeah. So I made half of it up because I knew you could, but I never had. And then I thought, well, hang on a sec. I've just proved that you can ski every month of the year, so why not every day? And on that basis, I started to look at the possibilities. And I put that to the FT, and to my great joy, they said, yeah, do it. And we'll run a piece every Saturday. And every month they listed the sponsors, and there were a few sponsors that helped.
I think Snow and Rock were one of the partners, is that right?
Yes.
They were quite early supporters when Mike Brown got behind you. And De Grey Set, were they one of your partners? De Grey Set, did they give you...
De Grey Set. Yes, they were. They helped us with clothing. But the lovely story about Mike Brown, if I may tell you quickly, is that he said, yes, we will give you all your clothing, skis, everything you need, and I will, if necessary, come out and join you somewhere in the world to replenish the stock.
Brilliant.
And then he had his terrible accident.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's the end. We're not going to get Snow and Rock sponsorship now. But he went ahead with it. And what's more, the fact that he said he would come out and replenish our skis and our equipment meant that he joined us in Meribel. I mean, he chose where to join us.
Yeah.
By that time, he was just learning how to sit ski. And which of course he carried on and became a very good sit skier. But the point was he made that by promising us to replenish our stock, even after he was very badly injured, it gave him the incentive to get better and travel again. So he very sweetly and generously said, thanks to you, I'm out here, and that was very nice of him. So Mike was a very important part of our trip.
So you pitched it to the Financial Times. Your very, very kind editor said, yep, go for this, Arnie. You can report for us for every week. And then presumably, you got the partners on board, but you had to do presumably a lot of planning before you actually started, anything.
There was a lot of planning going on.
And it was a calendar year, wasn't it? 1st of January to 31st of December.
I did it with Lucy Dicker, who, as you know. And Lucy was a great organiser. She ran a tour operation in London. She was selling holidays to the French Alps. And so for some months before we went, she was doing most of the donkey work. She was contacting, and occasionally we get someone coming back to us and say, well, look, spell it, rather than go to A, B, C, D, you'd be better off going to A, C, D, F. And so we had some great feedback. But she did a lot of work planning it, and the more work she did, the more sponsorship we got, and so it became a fait accompli, if you like.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we'll come to it. I guess you had to change your plans as you went along, but in the end, you went to 250 different ski resorts or ski areas, you might call them. As far as I can see, I think I saw it quoted to you the equivalent of skiing Everest 425 times. Certainly a Guinness World Record. What I wondered when I was looking at the schedule was, on those days when you had long flights, for example, you were flying from, Europe to Japan, or the States, Chile to New Zealand, how did you manage to get in time to go skiing on those days?
We always skied first thing in the morning before we left.
Right, okay.
And sometimes, not quite often actually, we skied during the night. We had the cooperation of the resorts. They were only putting us up for a day or two.
Yeah.
We would like to have gone to a different resort every day, but that would have been a bridge too far. And also we would have run out of ski resorts in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yes.
So we were content to do, 2 resorts every 3 days or that sort of thing. But if there was a problem of transport, we would maybe ski 1 mile, as long as we ski. And then to make up, the other thing I meant to mention was that the Financial Times said, well, you can't just go skiing for 1 run and then have lunch. And I think you should do 10 miles a day. And we agreed on that, which is reasonably, it's not to be sniffed at. So if we only skied 1 mile, as we occasionally did to get from continent to continent, we were at some stage. I should really have brought I had a huge diary. Every page refers to what happened that day, who we skied with.
Well, I mean, it's all in the book. Listeners can have a look at that too.
That's true. So we would, not there and then, we'd have to make up the 9 miles.
Yeah.
We just about did it. So by the time we got to the end, we had averaged just over 10 miles. Not 11, but just over. So, we kept going, and that was how we coped.
But so being planning like that, so on a day, for example, when you were about to fly from Chile to New Zealand, you were up really early in the morning skiing somewhere else. And I think from my memory of the book, wasn't there one day where you kind of pulled over to the side of the road to find like a patch of snow just to get skiing in?
We were skiing along the pavement in parts of Chile. It happened that we were in Chile when there was nowhere else to ski.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
I forget. Must have been when the resorts were closing.
Yeah, I think August is, I've got down here, July, August you were in Chile.
So we were, in order to produce 1 or 2 or 3 miles a day, we would ski down Mountain Pass and we'd ski on the pavement because it's still snow.
Yeah, of course, It's still skiing, isn't it? Exactly. So, I mean, you started off in the States, went up to Canada, and then in the summer, as far as I can see, looking at it, you tried the different glaciers of Austria and Italy and Switzerland.
Correct.
Looking at the resorts, another thing that struck me was it seems like there were way more resorts open in summer than there are now. I saw Les Diablerets on that list. Courmayeur, you skied in Courmayeur in the summer? Or does that mean you went up to the Vallée Blanche area and skied up there, perhaps?
I think, the thing is, a lot of resorts commercially close before the snow runs out.
Yes,
but if you really want to ski there, and you're prepared to walk up, you can still do it.
Yeah.
So it's not as if, it's March the 30th, the resort's closed now, sorry, that's it. You can still ski there.
No, of course you can. Of course you can, yeah. I mean, just now, a lot of resorts have skied. I was looking at the webcams in Val d'Isère, which closed last weekend. There is so much snow up at the top there in Bellevarde. You could have a great time, and I'm sure there'll be people who'll be, walking and ski touring,
exactly.
etc.
I've never been there, but I think there is a glacier.
Yeah, they open again in Val d'Isère in June. But I found that interesting that you managed to ski in those places. But of course, that explains it. I noticed on the schedule as well, you kept going in and out of Mammoth. Mammoth was almost your kind of hub, wasn't it, for the trip?
That's quite an important point. Mammoth was a terrifically useful place to ski in between the northern and southern hemisphere. We became friendly with the people in Mammoth. They would take us, for example, in Mammoth, it was our link between, as I say, between the States, between Europe and the southern hemisphere. And so I remember certainly that in Mammoth they allowed us up the mountain during the night because we had a flight the next morning from Los Angeles. Was that Billy? Yeah, Los Angeles at about 9:30, and so the only way we could catch that would be to ski at 6 in the morning, do one run maybe, and then we'd go to the airport. So yes, we had, but Mammoth did become very important to us as a great sort of link between the two hemispheres.
Right, that makes a lot of sense, and you'd think you would assume when you're trying to ski in 365 days over 13 countries, things will go wrong. So occasionally, things obviously go wrong. I think in Argentina your car broke down.
I think that was, yes, it was in Argentina, but the car was from Chile.
Oh, right, okay.
The car was a car we had borrowed from some friends, very nice of them. It was the easiest way of doing it, I suppose. And we took the car across the border and it kept breaking down, and it would have cost us a fortune to get it repaired in Argentina. And so we drove it back to Chile for it to be fixed. And I remember we were towed across the Andes by 4 different breakdown trucks. But we managed that.
And you still managed to get your skiing in on those days.
Yes. Yeah. Somehow, I can't remember how now.
Yeah, exactly.
If I looked at my diary, I would say, that's what happened, or that's what happened, But,
hey, I can't remember what happened last week. I wouldn't worry about that. And you were in India as well? Did you get a lift from the army in India?
Yes. India was a lot of strange aspects of the trip. We were asked to go to India. The Indian government. We were never,
That's brilliant.
Well, it could have been a disaster because if we'd failed one day.
Yes.
Well, chancing our luck in India, it would have ruined the whole year. We thought, do we say yes or no? But anyway, they asked us, and we went to Manali in the Himalayas.
Yeah, I've been there actually, Manali.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you ever ski there?
No.
Well, there's heli skiing there, which is probably the best heli skiing in the world, which I've done since the trip. I've done 2 or 3 trips there. But Manali was a bit of We just about managed, because the thing is there were no ski resorts open. We discovered when we got there. So what we did, we got a special government permit, and we drove with help from the local, I don't know, tourist office, I suppose, up the pass, and then we skied down all kinds of weird. It wasn't a ski resort at all. We were skiing down. It wasn't that dangerous, but it was sort of loose snow, ice, rivers, and then of course then when we skied down, we had to try and find our driver again. I've got some pictures at home of getting into the area, great big cliffs and walls of ice, and you think, God, what are you doing there? You know? It seemed like it might have been a mistake, but we managed to ski every day. But we skied so little in India that we ended up owing the total, if you like, another 30 or 40 miles.
I see, and you had to catch up.
To make up, yeah.
And that actually brings me back to another question, because these days lots of people they measure what they're doing on the mountain, they share it all because they're using different devices and ski tracker and this and that. But there was no internet, at the time that you were doing it. It was certainly very rudimentary. So how did you actually measure how far you were skiing?
We had devices. I've got one at home actually, which I've kept. We had little devices that you fit on the back of the skis.
Yeah.
And after we had used them for maybe a month, we were able to translate. Now, how did we work it out from there? We were able to remove the devices and pretty much guess.
But they were kind of, as you ski long, they ticked over and measured the distance. And what about altitude? How did you, work out or estimate what kind of altitude you were doing?
I don't think it mattered really.
That wasn't part of it. You told your editor you're going to do 10 miles a day.
Yes, but we also measured how long ski lifts were. So we never counted going up. We always counted how long the ski lifts were.
Right.
We did work out a formula, and I promise you we did.
No, that makes sense. Did you ever have to cross the international date line? Did that confuse things? Did that give you an extra day or one less day?
It robbed us of a day.
Right.
And I know people have said, well, you didn't ski every day of the year. Well, we had one day, August 22nd, which didn't happen, except for, I think, 4 hours of it happened. That was going from west to east back to Europe. So what we did to justify that we skied every day was those 2 or 3 days which surrounded the one day that didn't happen. We skied every 24 hours. So if someone said to us, well, you didn't ski that day, I said, well, we skied every 24 hours, so that kind of counted,
Yeah, and if that day doesn't exist for
how
you,
can you ski it?
then...
The trouble is, it did exist for 4 hours.
I see.
I
see. Okay.
But we were in the air at the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that counts personally.
Good.
And you've mentioned as well that you travelled with your partner at the time, Lucy Dicker, and you obviously spent every day together. I'm happily married, but I think every day, the whole day, would be quite tricky with my wife.
We had a few arguments, and there were occasionally days when we skied separately because we'd had a row. So I'd be doing that run and she'd be doing that run. But, we never really fell out badly.
So you referred to Clint Eastwood. He wrote the foreword in the book. And I think you met him quite early on in the Ski the World year, didn't you?
We were in Sun Valley. It was early. If I had my diary, I could tell you which day it was. And we just happened to... honestly, it was just luck. We were sitting like we are here at the table, and he was at the next table. And I'd actually said... wouldn't it be fun if we met Clint? And there he was. So we moved. He seemed to be quite welcoming. We said what we were doing, and we moved across to his table and had lunch with him. And
Brilliant.
He was very nice.
Excellent. And he's a skier, I take it. It was obviously winter.
Didn't ski with him, but
right.
He is a skier.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Because I'm going to Sun Valley this summer, and I think Arnold Schwarzenegger has got a place there as well, hasn't he?
Funny story. When he was governor of California.
Yes.
He was, without thinking about it, asked what his favourite ski resort was.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, well, I love Idaho. He got told off for it.
Because he was governor of California at the time.
California.
Right,
so
yeah.
He got told off for that. That was quite funny.
Yeah, well, I know he's got a place over there. And how did you meet Arnie? And was that during the Ski the World?
That was very self-indulgent. No, that was much later when I was married to Vivienne.
Yep.
We were, again, in Sun Valley. And in a lift line, and I saw him in the lift line. I thought, oh dear, this is going to be...
Yeah, it'd be easy to spot, I would imagine.
Yes. So at the top of the lift, I said to him, Mr. Schwarzenegger, I write for the Financial Times, could I interview you? And he said, no, I'm too busy skiing.
Fair enough, yeah.
I said, okay. But he said, but you can ski with me if you like.
How
So
cool.
we skied together.
How cool.
And I did the interview. And it wasn't a bad interview, and the FT did use it.
Yeah.
But what he didn't tell me, the rascal, was he was having major open heart surgery the next day, and he didn't tell me that. So
the scoop, you didn't manage
didn't
the
get
scoop.
the scoop.
Right,
But
okay.
at least I got an interview.
What was he like as a skier?
He was a good skier. I mean, as you know, born in Austria, skied nicely. Yeah.
Yeah. And Robert Redford, you met as well, not during that year, but
No,
later
this
on?
was much later. Vivian and I, my wife, having got married in Jackson Hole, of course, we were in, I'm trying to remember the name of his resort now.
Sundance.
But anyway, because I didn't want to be predictably interfering, we were told by the area manager that he wasn't around today, because I said, is Mr. Redford around? And then he turned up at lunchtime, and he sat as close as you are to me now, and I restrained myself, so we didn't really interview him, but we did look at each other and smile and everything else. But I would like to have done that, because I've always been a great fan of his. So it's probably the only time I've ever been in the company of somebody famous, and I have resisted the temptation.
As a journalist, you'd always be looking for that story, right?
yes, exactly.
I think probably helped with your early career, having met, some incredibly famous people, to be able to have the presence of mind to deal with them. Because I think that, in the few occasions when I've been around, particularly famous people, it's very hard not to get overexcited about
I suppose
it.
I was a bit sort of used to it, because I spent 10 years in Fleet Street interviewing celebrities. I met Jimmy Carter on the ski slopes. I gave him an early copy of one of my books. I suppose I didn't get blasé, but I got less worried about butting in and talking to famous people. And I think the guy that taught me that was probably Spike Milligan, because I remember
Oh yeah,
I
excellent.
got to know Spike, and
Yep.
I knew him for 20 years. I knew all the goons. My mistake with Spike initially, which taught me a lot, he rang me one day as a result of something or other I'd said, and I was fawning over him.
Right.
Oh yes, and I realised that when I treated him normally and had a joke with him, he was much more relaxed. And that taught me that when you interview celebrities, just relax, talk to them, don't treat them like royalty.
Yeah.
So that was a big lesson I learned from Spike, and I went on for 20 years as a sort of friend of Spike's, and I wrote lots of stories about him.
Excellent. I'll remember that tip the next time I come across Eric Cantona or one of my heroes, who I did meet in Teen one time, but that's another story. And so after that, round the world in the Financial Times, you did then end up being editor of the Ski Club of Great Britain's magazine, didn't you? How did that one come about?
Well, that was because I was wearing thin at the Financial Times. There were new people in charge of me. They wanted to change. I wasn't fired at all, but I was finding it less pleasurable to work for the FT because of the management. There was the editor and the weekend editor and his deputy were no longer doing that job, and so I was dealing with new people. And at the same time, by sheer chance, I got this call from Caroline Stewart-Taylor, who I'd skied with in Georgia many years earlier. And she said, did I want to be considered for editing Ski+Board magazine?
Excellent.
So I did the interview.
And at the time, she was the
chief executive.
CEO, CEO of the Ski Club of Great Britain.
Exactly. And so that was the beginning of, I think I edited more than 50 issues. I love doing it. I love coming up with headlines.
That's a lot, with only 4 or 5 a year.
4 a year. Yeah. I was there until 2013.
In the glory days of the ski club, some people might say.
Yeah, probably.
And how long were you at the ski club then, did you say?
12 years.
12 years, exactly. And then you've been freelance since then, yeah?
Yeah.
And are you planning to, what's the 740th ski resort that you're planning to add onto your list?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to make it. I'm not really bothered.
I mean, it must be hard to find new ones when you've been to so many already.
I always say that if I were younger and I wasn't married, I'd go into Austria and I'd live there for a whole winter.
Right.
They've got loads of small little areas with 2 little lifts. So you could actually knock up another 30 or 40 quite easily.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you go to everywhere in the Alps, there's so many like that where they have 1 or 2 kind of community-run lifts. And yeah, I suppose you could easily, well, I say easily, I mean 739, it says here 14 countries. I don't know, how that's a lot of ski resorts. Well, okay, here's another question then. Could you possibly pick, a favourite out of all of those then? Oh, all right,
Jackson
okay.
Hole,
Jackson Hole, right. You did get married there, you said to me earlier.
Yeah. I love the place for all kinds of reasons. Great skiing. If you want tough skiing, I love off-piste. Corbett's Coolwell. If ever you write about it, make sure you spell it with only one T.
Yes.
That is such a terrific run. And there are other great ski areas, other great ski runs. The mountains are beautiful. There's wildlife, terrific wildlife. Combination, it's remote and beautiful. And Telluride is my second favourite. Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't, no.
You need to go there.
It's like a Wild West kind of town, isn't it?
It is. There's a mining town up from the town, quite high up, and there was a lot of Swedish miners used to work there. When I had finished skiing around the world, I realised I'd skied in something like 30 states in America.
Yes.
So I thought, well, why don't I ski the other states? So I've got a friend, you might know him, called Bernie Weichel in America. He and I deliberately skied in all the states that I hadn't skied during the round the world trip. So we ended up skiing in strange places that you wouldn't think you could ski in. So I can now say I've skied in all 38 states which have ski lifts, or a ski lift, down in America.
I kind of imagine, are there like dry slopes or anything like that in those ones that don't have anything? I know there's sort of a bit of skiing everywhere, but that's pretty good. 38 ski states. Well, 739 resorts. I'm sure there will be other ones that you'll add to that list. Really interesting to hear that, Jackson Hole, comes out on top. And, very fascinating to talk to you as always, Arnie.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you.
I'd really like to thank Arnie for sharing his time to talk to me. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to his story as much as I did. Don't forget we have 146 episodes of the Ski Podcast currently to listen to, available wherever you download your podcasts. Hi there, listener. This is Iain here, and this is a request for your feedback all about the Ski Podcast. I'd like you to tell us what you like, what you don't like about the podcast. It's very easy and simple to let me know. Just go along to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/the Ski Podcast survey. It'll take you a couple of minutes to complete the form at the very most, and you could win some prizes. I've got some goggles very kindly donated by Atomic, and I've got some other freebies such as beanies from Les Deux Alpes and Val d'Isère and Visit Tyrol. And lots of other bits and pieces that I'm going to give out in a random draw for everybody who completes the survey. So if you could complete the survey, that's great. Remember, the address again is bit.ly/the Ski Podcast survey. And if you're not too sure about that, just have a look at us on social media and you'll be able to see a link to it there. Thanks very much, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about the show.